What's up, NBA fans? Nic Rohloff here of NBA Now. On today's show, Blockbuster NBA trade candidates. And by the way, can we just get a RIP in the chat for Blockbuster? I know they've been out of business for a while, but when I was a kid, they used to be the GOAT. But we're going to talk about some Blockbuster NBA trade candidates on today's show. But before we do that, help me out because I challenged Tom Downey, Tyler Jones, who do some of the NFL content here on our main Chat Sports channel. And the top liked NFL video last week was 361 likes. I want the NBA fans to come out and show out and beat the NFL. So show the NFL that the NBA is better by hitting that like button. All right, the first player that we have to talk about, I mean, come on. Was it any other surprise here? It is Donovan Mitchell, the guard from the Cleveland Cavaliers. And really, all the eyes in the offseason are turned on D-Mitch. And the question is, will he sign that long-term deal or not? He is eligible to sign a 4-year, $208 million extension in the first week of July. And they've been non-committal, or I should say Donovan Mitchell has been non-committal to Cleveland. And then obviously they get rid of J.B. Bickerstaff, and they've got a head coach search. And we kind of got a little update on Monday morning from Brian Windhorst on the Cavaliers coaching update. He said that Kenny Atkinson and James Borrego are viewed as the current favorites for the Cavaliers head coaching job. And if I'm going to be honest, if I was a Cavs fan, would hope that is not the case, because to me, if one of those two gets hired, I don't see D-Mitch staying long-term with one of those two head coaches. I think those guys have had their chance, and sure, you can say they deserve another one, but I don't know if that's going to be good enough to convince Mitchell to stay in Cleveland. We're talking about one of the best young guards in the entire NBA that can score at all three levels, and there's also been rumors and reports out there that he's had a big hand in the, at least moving forward of the Cleveland Cavaliers organization. So I guess if he wanted one of those two head coaches, he would sign long-term. But if he was not an advocate for one of those two guys, I think D-Mitch is going to be gone. So the question is, who could trade for Mitchell and make this blockbuster trade actually happen? Well, the Miami Heat have had a long-rumored interest in Donovan Mitchell, and to me, they are the best fit for D-Mitch. You get him in there with Jimmy and Bam, you form a really solid big three. And yeah, the big three era might be dead in the NBA, but at least in 2024-25, it would be able to work due to Mitchell only being paid $35 million. And it feels like they would definitely be willing to extend Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell would want to extend there. Brooklyn's interesting because Mitchell is from that area, and the Nets have a lot of draft capital to potentially send to the Cavaliers to acquire D-Mitch. The Lakers reportedly want Mitchell, but I don't think the Lakers are going to get him. Dan Gilbert reportedly doesn't want to send him to Los Angeles. And then the last team that's interesting is Houston, just because they have probably the best trade package. 9 tradable first-round picks, plethora of young talent, Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, Jabari Smith, Amen Thompson. They have guys to send to Cleveland. The question is, would Don Mitchell want to sign a long-term deal there? Well, that might steer a trade away. But let me know your thoughts down below. It's the biggest question this offseason has. Maybe you can talk about LeBron James and what he does, but will Donovan Mitchell be traded? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Let your voice be heard. All right, Mikal Bridges, the forward from the Brooklyn Nets. Yes, this could be a trade candidate. It'd be a little bit of a shocker, but I think there's a serious possibility that he does get dealt, because the Nets are kind of at a crossroads, right? And even their owner, Joe Tsai, kind of mentioned this as well. It's like, what do they want to do? Do they want to spend all of their draft capital that they acquired trading away Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden to get a solid player to help build around Mikal Bridges? And if they did that, who would it be? Or do they just commit to the rebuild? Because Mikal Bridges, is he really a number one option? Probably not, right? He's a very solid player, but a number one option? Honestly, is he a number two? Probably not, but he would be a really high-end number three. To me, Mikal Bridges is kind of in the same tier as Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton, where if you have two of those guys to make up a 2 and a 3, that works next to a really good player like a Giannis Antetokounmpo if you look back to that 21 Bucks team. But I'm not so sure he can be a number one. So does Brooklyn just trade that pile another 3 or 4 first-round picks, and then have a stockade of picks where they can go spend in the draft or make another blockbuster trade if a disgruntled star becomes available. The Nets have to commit to one direction, and I don't know which direction that will be, but he is a good two-way player that can average 18, 19 points a game, also be a top-tier wing defender, so that's going to garner a lot of interest. Some of the teams that are going to be interested, number one is the New York Knicks, and I think it's the biggest Knicks target to upgrade their roster. You have OG Anunoby, you have Jalen Brunson. OG has to be re-signed, of course, but if you were to trade for Mikal Bridges, use the draft capital they have, you now could have a unbelievably good four-man group of Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, with Josh Hart coming off the bench. Like, that's a very solid wing and guard mashup right there, mixed in with whatever center they keep in Mitchell Robinson or Isaiah Hartenstein. That'd be dominant. Same thing for Houston. They're looking to fast-track their rebuild. They have the assets, as I mentioned. Could New Orleans look for a better fit with Zion and CJ McCollum? Maybe Brandon Ingram isn't that. Mikal Bridges, better defender, maybe more efficient. He could be a guy. The 76ers, who drafted Mikal Bridges and then traded him on draft night, could want him back. A lot of cap space, 5 tradable first-round picks after the 2024 NBA draft. And then the Thunder are an intriguing team because if they want to go all in and just create a great four-man lineup, kind of like the New York Knicks, you have SGA, you have Jalen Williams, you have Chet Holmgren, and then you pair Mikal Bridges into that. That is a very well-balanced scoring attack mixed with very good defensive pieces as well. They have a lot of draft capital they could trade. It would be something to keep your eye on for. Make sure you are subscribed to us here at Chat Sports because we are going to bring you the best NBA coverage, including being live for every single NBA Finals game. I will be live alongside our producer, Cullen Brown, here. It's going to be a lot of fun to join me and Cullen to do live play-by-play, commentary, analysis, and just hang out during the Finals matchup between the Celtics and the Mavs. All right, let's get over to Trae Young now, the point guard from the Atlanta Hawks, because to me, the Hawks got to blow it up. They do. Like, blow it up might be a strong word because they're going to keep one of the two guards, whether it be Trae Young or DeJounte Murray. And if I was Atlanta in the GM Landry Fields, I'm probably keeping DeJounte Murray because he's a little bit better defensively, and to me, he's more of a winning basketball player. So you deal Trae Young, who's had success in the league, one of the biggest offensive juggernauts, if you will, in the NBA, consistently averaging more than 25 points a game, consistently dishing out 9+ assists a game as well. The efficiency has always been a question. You'd think his three-point numbers would be higher than they are. He's a little bit of a volume three-point shooter, not an efficient three-point shooter. He can shoot it from 35+ feet. Ice Trae, you know, the logo, the whole 9 yards. But the question with Trae Young is, can someone of his stature, and I mean literally there, win in the NBA? Because he is such an undersized point guard, and yes, he improved defensively this past season, getting in better spots off ball, helping on weak side, but he just simply cannot guard his man without getting help due to his lack of strength, lack of size, lack of wingspan, and lack of quickness. So it will be a question that will have to be answered, and if a team already has two solid wing players or defensive players in place, maybe you take the shot on Trae Young to be your offensive engine. We'll talk about some teams that could trade for Trae in just a second, but make sure you get started with the #1 daily fantasy sports app, which is Prize Picks. More than 5 million people use Prize Picks on a daily basis. They've got daily promotions, which is just the absolute best. You can lower select player stat projections on Tuesdays, which Prize Picks does. It also daily specials on like Taco Tuesday, and you have Demons and Goblins, Flex Friday. There's just so many different ways to play Prize Picks, which makes it so much fun. And the finals are getting started on Thursday, June 6th. I've already got an entry. By the way, bad move on me for jumping the gun with this entry. I already got mine in earlier this week. I wanted to get some projections and stat totals that I liked. Well, guess what? They're running a special for Jason Tatum more than half a point, so I lost out here, but I still do believe he'll go less than 27.5. I'll also pair that up with Derek White more than 14.5 points and more than Daniel Gafford 6 rebounds. It's the absolute best, and guess what? Even when the finals are over, hoops action will not stop on Prize Picks because women's basketball is getting started. Young stars like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, the beef between those two right now, Cameron Brink, are just some names trying to get in the likes of Breanna Stewart and Asia Wilson. You could win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out and get a first deposit match up to $100 when you download the app and use code CLNS, or just go in the description and comments, hit that link, prizepicks.com/CLNS, use code CLNS, get a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less, that easy. I kind of mentioned and hinted at some teams that could benefit from trading for Trae Young. If you're talking about a contender that makes the most sense, probably the Lakers and Heat. I mentioned the two defensive guys. You keep LeBron. You have Anthony Davis. Heat have Jimmy and Bam. Like, you have the wing who can do it all when it matters the most in the postseason, but can take a little bit of a breather in the regular season due to Trae Young, the defensive anchor, and Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis. Those two teams make a lot of sense and need more scoring from the perimeter. New Orleans is interesting because there's reports and rumors out there that they would be interested in Darius Garland if he's on the trade block. And to me, Garland and Trae Young are very similar, undersized guards that can dish it and just score in volume. So if you're interested in Garland, why wouldn't you be interested in Trae Young? And then obviously the San Antonio Spurs, who are searching for that point guard to help really grow Victor Wembanyama's game and pick and rolls and give Wemby some easy lobs. We saw Trae Young's numbers. He can certainly dish it out. So I would not be surprised if the Spurs jumped in on Trae Young, especially if that value is in the gutter. Move over to Karl-Anthony Towns, and you might think to yourself, what do you mean Karl-Anthony Towns? The Timberwolves just made the Western Conference Finals. Why would they trade one of their top pieces? Well, they're actually in some trouble. And I was talking with producer Coop here, too, at the Chat Sports headquarters, and we were talking of like, well, everyone thinks the Timberwolves are young, like they'll be back. That's not the case. They're actually in a horrific spot in terms of cap space. They are, at least on paper right now, the number one spending team for the 24-25 season. They have allocated $273.5 million to their roster next season. That is unsustainable. They are the least amount of cap space in the league with minus 132 or in the negative. They're over the first apron by $17.3 million, and they're over the second apron by $6.48 million. So they have a lot of restrictions on them. They have no flexibility to upgrade the roster. They are likely going to have to shed salary. And could they do it by trading Karl-Anthony Towns, who has a $49.3 million cap hit for the 2024-25 season? Cat has been a mainstay in Minnesota, the former first overall pick. He finally gets a player better than him in Minnesota with Anthony Edwards, and they look like they're on track to have a good young duo. But Cat having some struggles in the postseason, specifically in the Western Conference Finals outside of the one game in Game 4, like, could they look to move on him? Like, the question is, I think the Timberwolves are going to have to decide between Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. And to me, it will be easier for the T-Wolves to move Cat than Rudy Gobert. Maybe I could be wrong on that, but it would save them more money to move Cat, and I think you'd have more interest because of his ability to score on the offensive end. But we'll have to see. And some teams that could be interested in Cat, to be honest, even though I said there's going to be some more interest in Cat than there would be Gobert, it's still limited, man. Like, Brooklyn could do it, which would be intriguing. Could they send first-round picks and Ben Simmons, to Minnesota? They have the cap space to take Karl-Anthony Towns in. You pair Cat with Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton. Maybe that's the way they want to go rather than trading away Mikal Bridges. The 76ers have the most cap space in the NBA. Could they create a big man, like Twin Towers, if you will, between Karl-Anthony Towns and Joel Embiid? It's intriguing. I don't know if they do it. And a sneaky team is the Pistons, who have reportedly been seeking a player to help grow this team and get more winning in that building with Cade Cunningham. Jalen Duren, Cat, big man front court, Cade Cunningham running the pick and roll. It's something to keep your eye out for. But like I kind of mentioned, the interest wouldn't be that high in Cat. I think it would be a little bit higher than Rudy Gobert's. Maybe I'm wrong. Rudy got exposed. Even though he's a four-time depoy, he got exposed in the postseason, man. They were targeting him in the pick and roll. He has no offensive game. Why would you want to trade for someone making $40+ million that really can't give you anything on offense and gets targeted in pick and rolls in the postseason? The interest is interesting, and the Timberwolves are in a very weird spot. One more name that we're going to talk about on today's show, but name someone that will be traded this offseason. You could name the 4 guys that we've talked about already. Maybe we haven't talked about a player yet. Lauri Markkanen hasn't been talked about. Is he going to be dealt? Who knows? Name someone that will be traded down below. Last player we will talk about is Brandon Ingram, and this is probably the least blockbuster out of all of them, and it's probably the most expected trade as well. Like, if I had to rank the most expected trade out of these 5 guys, it would probably go Brandon Ingram 1, Donovan Mitchell 2, like Trae Young 3, Cat 4, Mikal Bridges 5, because there are reports that the Pelicans want to move on. They want to build in a direction surrounding Zion, surrounding CJ McCollum, Herb Jones, and Trey Murphy, who I'm a big fan of, by the way. I might be the leader of the Trey Murphy, Herb Jones front court, or not front court, but wing duo in the NBA. And Ingram entering the last year on his deal could be someone that a team like Philadelphia wants to go out and get to add next to Maxey and Embiid and build around that core of 3 guys for the long term. Like, he can score, but the question I always have with Ingram is how motivated he is. Sometimes he lacks the drive, lacks the motor, just looks unengaged out there. So that could be a concern, but there's no denying his offensive talent, especially after being a top, 3 pick in the NBA draft 8-9 years ago. Has it been 2016? How long? 8 years ago. Yeah, folks. 8 years ago, B.I. was getting drafted in the top 3. And I mentioned the 76ers. I think they could be an interested team for Brandon Ingram. The Knicks are certainly intriguing if they want to add a more offensive guy to help take the load off of Jalen Brunson. Could they look for a lineup of Brunson, DiVincenzo, B.I., OG, and move Randall in that deal? Maybe. Miami's could be a team that's interested. The Grizzlies are intriguing. I kind of came up with them on my own here. Like, could the Grizzlies look for that connecting piece? Now, I don't know if the Pelicans would trade him in division, but you have Jaren Jackson Jr. in the front court. You have John Desmond Bane in the backcourt. Could a Marcus Smart plus picks package get it done for Brandon Ingram, and you add that connecting piece on the wing? It's definitely intriguing. And then there has been that rumor of the Cavs being interested in Ingram and the Pelicans being interested in Garland. Could there be a swap there? So these are some of the interested teams I think that could be on the market, I should say, for Brandon Ingram. All right, that's going to do it for today's video. If you want more NBA content, want to continue the conversation surrounding the NBA, best way to do that is to follow me on Twitter at Nic_Rohloff, where I'm talking basketball every single day. And if you do, shoot me a DM. I won't be afraid to answer. So go give me a follow, and let's continue the conversation.